we're going to be talking about Erika Kirk, as titled by a lady online called Jenny Gage, America's Christian Queen. She has her own channel, Life Take Two. David and I, we speak about things like this all the time, and we just thought it actually just an interesting starting point to start a YouTube channel. So here we are. So we're going to
Yeah,
talk about Erika Kirk through the lens of Jenny Gage and Life Take Two, coming out of the Mormon Christian culture, and doing a whole U-turn on it, and now her views on or what she highlights about Erika Kirk as America's Christian Queen. So go on, David. I'm going to let you start because actually you made a really valid point about the way that Erika presents herself with the visual clothing.
yeah. So the whenever I see, and we've discussed this privately about there's a different an expectation from Europeans, the British, the Irish, of how you mourn. So to see Erica Kirk in these extremely glamorous outfits, and obviously the Christian cross always present as well, it has been much discussed, and it's something that you and I don't understand. It's the opposite of what we would expect to see from a grieving widow. But as I also mentioned, I'm not sure where the conflict is between how much of a grieving widow she has to be versus I now have the responsibility to push forward my husband's legacy.
Yeah. So then I suppose my view on that would be she was never pushing forward her husband's legacy until her husband was assassinated because we didn't know her. She's literally come out of nowhere. And now that her husband is assassinated, suddenly we know her, and her whole thing is to push forward her husband's legacy. So isn't that in and of itself just very strange? She was always in the background. We didn't know anything about her. And suddenly she's the figurehead.
Yeah, I do find that strange. The only caveat that I find, who was second to Charlie Kirk when he was alive? Because I don't know.
I wouldn't have a clue. I mean, Charlie Kirk's
No,
fairly new on
this
my
is, did you know what
radar,
I mean?
so
Because Charlie Kirk was such was the prominent figurehead for Turning Point USA,
yes.
and he was the front, the face. He, as far as I'm aware, he was everything. Obviously, it had the financial backers behind him, but he was the brand and the face of the organization.
Yeah.
So when he was assassinated, I don't know how it come about that Erica Kirk was put in his place. I don't know the thinking behind it. I don't know. I don't understand why, other than is it what who was the alternative choice? Because nobody knew anyone else. And like you, apart from a few photos, I didn't really know who Erica Kirk was outside of Charlie Kirk's wife. But that's the point. Everybody knew it was Charlie Kirk's wife, and by the fact that he got assassinated, she was put at the forefront of everything. So does she just become the natural choice? And this is now just possibly because Charlie Kirk was the glue that held it all together, and he
Mm.
was the driving force. And his assassination is, on one sense, um, meant they've lost their most charismatic figure and their natural leader. But on the other hand, it's actually united many areas and sort of roots or tree or branches of the Christian church and people who weren't Christians but just like what he said.
Okay, so let's stick it this way. So Charlie Kirk was successful in Turning Point USA in garnering support from a kind of a Christian nationalist point of view and the point of view of the church and the good Christian family of all etc. Erika Kirk was in the background. Nobody really knew her. She's come from a very feminist background before she got married, and suddenly her feminism has taken a backseat in in replacement for this whole Christian nationalism where, women should stay at home and have their children and not focus so much on their careers, which she can openly say now that she's had a career and made an absolute fortune and she can afford to do that. Whereas, a lot of probably American women can't, just like a lot of women across the globe just can't sit on their
Yeah.
laurels and just wait for the right man to come along because, that it is a little bit of a pipe dream, let's be honest. And then this spouting of biblical citizenship and Christian nationalism, which is what all this comes under. It's the banner that this comes under, being the good Christian wife, raising your kids, being obedient to your husband, and all that kind of stuff. But is it not just a little bit weird coming from a former feminist?
Well, yes and no, because is that not the first person, she's not the first person to change her mind about something. She's not the first person to evolve, experience different things, and effectively, she was what 30 when she met, or whenever her and Charlie Kirk. He was in his 20s. I think he's was it 5, 6 years younger than her. They met, married, had kids. Um, he got assassinated, and I guess it's just taken over the reins of her husband. I suppose it's where do we draw the line between it's a religious organization versus a business? Because if it's a business, she's a natural successor as a CEO. If it's a
Right, so this
religious,
then poses in my tiny brain here, and I've literally only just come to think of this. So she was used to being the front of everything until she married Charlie Kirk, and then she was the back of everything.
but she
You know,
wasn't famous before Charlie Kirk, was she? Well,
no, she
she was
wasn't
because she was the
famous. She was
beauty
the front of
pageant.
her
Yeah,
own businesses. She was her own
yeah,
entrepreneur.
yeah.
She was that feminist. Now, she gave all that up for her marriage to Charlie Kirk. And she
Mm,
stayed in the background. Charlie Kirk took the limelight and she supported that, or we're going to assume she supported that because, they weren't divorced. So
yeah.
let's just make the assumption she supported that. Maybe she got fed up of not being in the limelight, and maybe she's a limelight kind of person, and maybe the assassination of her husband potentially has something to do with her. Not that I'm spreading conspiracy theories either, but I think the more I think about this, I'm like, okay, is it far-fetched to think this? Because now she has become, like you said, the natural successor of Turning Point USA.